Hey guys, my name is Taylor Staley. I'm a member of the Louisiana Tech Kinesiology Department, and today I'm going to show you how we do our dynamic bench press lab for Kines 4 on 9. Let's do it. Alright, so before we get into the main points of how you properly perform the bench press exercise, just giving you kind of some background on the purposes of our kinesiology labs. The reason that we do what we do is we compare our students' norms in all of the labs throughout the course of the quarters, and we compare them to national norms of other college students and see how we, as the Louisiana Tech University Kinesiology Department, compare to everyone else on a national level. So with that being said, this lab demonstrates dynamic strength through the bench press exercise. So just some basic points about how we're going to start this exercise before we actually get into how to do the lab. So the first thing that we're going to do is talk about the 5 points of contact on the bench. These should be in contact with the bench or the floor at all times throughout your entire range of motion. So the first is your head, your back, your bottom, your left, and your right foot. So like I said, this should be in contact throughout the whole entire lift, or else it probably will create some problems for you. The second thing that we're going to talk about is where your eyes should be. So when I lay back, my eyes should be directly underneath the bar. It's a pretty comfortable position for everyone, and it's really easy for everyone to kind of figure that out based on their positioning, and it's a comfortable position. The next thing that we talk about is where do we place our hands on the bar. As you can see on most Olympic lifting bars, there's a rigid portion, and then when it transitions into a smooth portion. What I like to do to figure out where to place my hands is I go about a thumb's width away, and then I close my hands in a closed grip. The purpose of the closed grip is if you have an open grip, you're likely to lose the bar if you have a lot of weight on there, and you can actually cause a lot of injury. So remembering all these points, keeping your eyes underneath the bar with a closed grip. Again, some people like to go wider with their hands. I like to keep mine close to shoulder width apart, maybe a little further out, because again, if you get too far out, you can create some chance for injury. So with that being said, those are the main points that you want to be able to focus on when you're preparing to bench. So the next aspect that we're going to talk about is from a spotting perspective. Bench press is really important. It's one of the core lifts that you're typically going to do with any strength exercise, so it's really important that especially when you're testing for a 1 rep max, you always have spotters. In the cases for our labs, if you're going really, really heavy, we would put a spotter on either side, but just for these purposes and demonstration purposes, I'll just show you what it looks like just having one spotter behind the rack. So the first thing that a spotter wants to do, you want to have an alternating stance, about shoulder width apart. Just makes it comfortable, and that you have a good base of support in case you do need to help the lifter lift up at any point in time. The second thing that you want to do, every spotter should have an alternating grip. You don't want to have the same grip as your lifter, and your grip needs to be in between theirs. So if my grip again was thumbs width away from where the smooth and the rigid meet, I as a spotter would have my hands right about here. One hand should be in the supinated position, and the other should be in the pronated position. So the ultimate rule of a spotter is pretty much helping in any case for lift-off purposes for when you're getting ready to lift, and also if failure ever occurs throughout the lift. For this lab, students will undergo 5 to 10 minutes of a general warm-up. Ideally, we would want to perform our 1 rep max around the 4th or 5th set. Some general guidelines that we tend to give our students are to do 2 warm-up sets that normally consist of 1 set of 8 reps at 40 to 60% of their 1 rep max. And then they can move on to the second set, which would consist of 1 set of 3 reps at 50 to 70% of their 1 rep max. Or if they wanted to go at a higher percentage, they could do 1 set of 3 to 5 reps at 60 to 80% of their 1 rep max. Some students in our lab classes have never actually found their 1 rep max before, so these numbers could vary slightly per person. Overall, though, these are pretty good guidelines to follow when helping our students warm up for proper testing for the bench press lab. Alright, so now that we've gone over the procedure of how we properly bench press and spot, we're actually going to go over how we do this for our lab purposes. So what we're going to do is we're going to remember our 5 points of contact. We're going to have our closed grip, the distance on the bar. You've already decided where you're going to put your hands. So the first thing is we're going to lean back, find all the appropriate positions that we found earlier. If I had a spotter behind me, they would be having an alternated grip right now, and they would help me lift off the bar. When we start the motion of a 1 rep max bench press, what we're going to do is the lifter is going to tell the spotter when they want to lift off. So I typically say to my spotter when I have one is, all right, 3, 2, 1, and they help me lift off the bar. When you bring the bar down, don't slam it against your chest. When you bring it down, you're going to lightly come, touch your chest right around the nipple line, and drive it back up. So come down, touch the chest, drive back up. When you rack it, always make sure you rack it against the J-hooks and then place it down. Your spotter should help you bring it back into a safe position, and that is how you properly perform the bench press. One other aspect of this lab that we want to find is mean power. This just gives one other statistical element for our students to use that we can compare to national norms. To calculate mean power, one student within the lab, within the groups, will need to have a stopwatch or a phone available or just something to keep time with. Ideally, we want to find mean power around the third set. The student performing the lift will count down, and the spotter is going to help them lift it off the bar. On the student's first initial downward movement, the timer starts the stopwatch. As soon as the student finishes their last completed rep or partially completed rep, the timer stops the watch. Students can then use these numbers to determine their mean power. Again, this just gives another statistical element for comparison for our students within our labs to have against national norms.